Welcome to Caching Waves. This is an Elliott Wave update for Bitcoin. Now in this video, I'm going to go over all my Elliott Wave counts, but there is an indicator I wanted to show you that I use to pair up with Elliott Wave. If you just follow this indicator, you're not going to be able to pick a top, in my point of view, but if you pair it up with Elliott Wave, you should be able to drastically increase the odds that you are near a top. So what that is, I'm on the BLX chart. This is the monthly candlesticks. And what that is interest over time on Google Trends, if you go to Google Trends. And I search Bitcoin worldwide, and I went back to 2016. Now, what you'll notice here is every time we get above 20, 25 is kind of when we start to go parabolic in searches, as you can see. October 2017, peaked in December 2017. I marked all these off on the chart. But then you can see while we're going through corrections, we're very low, sub 20, right? And then we go parabolic again, right? And we peaked again, came back down. But one thing to note is the last move pushing all-time highs, we didn't even come close to previous interest, right? Which is interesting because we have Wall Street coming in, all these ETFs, yet the interest over time is way less than previous highs. So when you look at that, you say, okay, what does that mean? To me, what I put value in on that reading is the fact that retail is not in yet. People haven't FOMO'd in yet, which is an interesting thought considering the fact that, you know, we're pushing all-time highs as we speak, right? So what that makes me wonder is, should I be going with my more bullish count, which is on the larger time frame, either a extended fifth wave or a 1-2-1-2 off the low in 2023, right? But it's important to note. So I marked these peaks, and as you can see, they just fall off a cliff, right? So this was when we got above 20, started going parabolic, and then we peaked. But you wouldn't get your reading that the search volume tailed off till the next month, right? And we've already come down pretty significantly. Same goes with all these marks. So if this pairs up with an Elliott Wave count, you see parabolic move peaking, and you see a fifth of the fifth and peak interest on Google Trends, this can give you some extra confidence that a potential top is in. Because if we go back to the chart, like, we don't know how high it's going to go. I wouldn't have expected this to peak at 42, right, in March. We'd expect it to go higher. But we have continued sideways, which is great with the low amount of interest we've had in the search volume, right? But anyways, this is just an extra indicator. One thing I'm considering too is, as technology changes, where are people getting their news from? So this adds a little extra decision time. Maybe you can go between the two. Are people searching on the web, or are they searching on YouTube? Because I can go by YouTube search volume. And what's interesting about YouTube search volume is if we go from September to October, we're actually curling up in search volume, right? But you can see the low end is a little bit lower. So I'm gonna look into this as well, YouTube, to see which one tends to be better. Maybe we can get a little more earlier indications on YouTube. But yeah, that's just something I'm going to look into. So looking at this view, what's interesting too is when we peak over 2025-ish, if I look every time in history, the moves were like 400% moves-ish, 300 the last one, I think, and low. But what's interesting is we only got 3 months of parabolic move in web search. So that's retail when we get those parabolic moves, right? So when they got 3 months of parabolic move, that was after we broke previous all-time highs. This one was similar. That was when we broke above the first wave one there within that trend. It wasn't breaking all-time highs, but that's when interest came in, went parabolic. And this one, we went parabolic for 5 months. Right here. 4, 5. We had to pull back and a peak again, right? This one would have been a little more easier to see, in my point of view, because you could see the interest trail off here and you had a chance to grab your profit there. And then obviously we came back down, interest trailed off, and you can see we got kind of a double peak move there. But what makes me happy about this is the fact that we've had such little interest. What happens? Where's price going to be when interest actually comes back, right? But I'm not going to know where this is going to peak. It'd be easy to say, oh, it peaks when this last one peaked at 67. At 67, I take profit. That would be very nice if that's how indicators work, but it's not, right? What if we only come to 50, right? Which is possible too. But seeing these parabolic moves, knowing that previously they lasted between 3 and 5 months so far, that's nice to know. So if we start making parabolic interest over 3 to 5 months, we're going to be on guard at that point, right? And if we have an Elliott wave count that confirms a top near that time, I mean, we're going to be in defense mode. So that's the important thing. All right, but anyways, I just wanted to share that. That's one thing I look at on the larger term trends. I don't cover it all the time because I don't see a point. But it's important at highs, obviously. So let's go over my Elliott wave counts here. We were going over a couple the other day, but there is a few things I added here as we're getting this pullback. I'll give you my most bullish scenario, and I'll show you the problem wave. So in this scenario, have this as a WXY zigzag X triangle to complete our fourth wave. So fourth is in, invalidation is at 57,493.30. So that's where we start our impulse. It's important to note this is a fifth wave in the larger view. So off this low, our triangle invalidation there, we had a wave 1 and 2. Have this as a 1 and 2. This is the wave I need to talk about, and potentially a third 1 and 2. Now in this scenario, we'd have 3 nested 1-2s. This is my most bullish scenario, which means we would absolutely launch here, right? And not have many significant pullbacks after that fact. Now the problem wave, if you watch my previous videos, was this wave in here. This is why I was expecting another move to the downside. So first thing to note, I usually look for the 618 to the 1-to-1 extension of the wave in time. That's not a rule. That's just a guideline. That's where I like to see the completed correction. So we are looking for something like this, and off we go, right? We only came to the 382 retracement. Usually we look between the 50 and the 786 for a wave 2. The other reason why my primary was to the downside is this wave. So this is the start of the move to the upside. I measured this many different ways. I was like, okay, could we get a diagonal here? But in the diagonal, the third wave cannot be the shortest. If that's our third wave, it's the shortest, right? There's no real way to label this as a diagonal to get the diagonal shape because the third wave would be the shortest. To me, this looks pretty much like a perfect double zigzag, ABC, X, ABC. It's pretty much ideal, right? This is also a double zigzag, ABC, X, ABC. Someone mentioned in the comments, I think on the last video, that's a 5-wave, and no, that's not a 5-wave. But anyways, the only way I see this as a wave to complete and get our shy retracement there, this gets us to the 618 in time, and that is a combination. So this would be, on the micro, a WXY. And I also don't love this either. I'm just giving you the counts that are valid. And what that would look like is a zigzag X and a triangle, A, B, C, D, E. Right? Very ugly. Not pretty. But that's the only way, because this cannot be an impulse to me. So we have to complete over here. Unless we get some sort of truncation, right? But I don't like to use truncations here. And you can also consider that this entire thing could be a triangle, right? But here's your issue. You can't get a triangle wave 2. So if this entire thing is the triangle, which looks better to me, as for time and size, then it can't be a wave 2, right? We can only get a triangle in a combination where it's a WXY. That's why I'd label it like this. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's not my job to say one thing's going to happen over the other. The absolute thing is just that the rules are followed, but my primary count is usually based on what's following the best guidelines based on those rules, right? So anyways, you consider this a funky wave 2 in this scenario, and we have a third 1-2 nested. I would assume the first is done because the size of this correction, it doesn't really match up with anything to be a fourth wave. We've already come past the 382 here of the retracement. So I'd be looking again between the 50 and the 786, most common area for our wave 2s. This looks like a B, C, potential triangle here for an A wave. No, for a W wave, sorry. WX, AB, maybe a little bit further to go. Same thing, looks like a double zigzag. WXY. So to me, any area here is a good buy if you decide to play this scenario. Up to you. I'm going to wait a little longer. I want to see a reaction on the bottom. I usually play down at the 15-minute. Look for a reaction at the bottom. Nice ABC. I can put my stop at that level and get a much larger position size. But if I was a swing trader, I'd be looking to buy these areas. Stop probably just past the 786 or the invalidation level. Because if we get this third of the third, that's going to be a big move that pretty much does not come back, right? So that's my most bullish scenario. I hope you understand why this was a tough area. I mean, there's no way this would ever be my primary, right? It wouldn't be good if that was your primary count. You'd lose a lot if you counted like that for every asset you're tracking. Okay, here's my scenario 2. We mentioned that we can't get a triangle in a wave 2. This is also where our wave 4 ended here. So I'm using that same scenario. Here is scenario 2. So this is the start of our impulse and validation of that triangle setup. We mentioned we couldn't get a triangle in a wave 2. We can get it in a wave 4. And if I put our wave 1 and extend our line off there, we did not overlap with the end of wave 4. We overlap with some of wave 4, but not the termination point, right? So this is also valid. Wave 3 is not the shortest in this scenario. And in this scenario, we'd expect a deeper pullback. I'd expect between 65, let's see which one's closer here. Yes, they're about the same. Between 65 and 60,000, the 50 and the 786. And this would be our 5-wave move. 1, 2, 3, 4, without overlap, 5. In which case, we'd probably expect this to trend down, probably get a diagonal to start there, A, B, C, something like that. And then we finally get our third wave. Now, I will take this short, but not now if we get a diagonal here. Because we started this move with a 3-wave. You can see this is a 3-wave. So the way this would be most likely an A wave would be if this ends up making a diagonal, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 with the overlap 5. So I'd be looking to take this short after we get our ABC. That's how I would play that. Otherwise, I'm looking for that move to the upside and to be complete very short, very soon, either here or one more wave down in the very bullish scenario that I showed you, this one. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, I'm waiting a little longer to make my decision because nothing's clear at the moment. But if we get that diagonal, that's a good short, but I wouldn't short before then. I'm only interested in longs until that fails. Okay, what's next? We were looking at this diagonal. Seems unlikely at this moment. The one thing I'm considering is if this plays out, it's going to be confusing between the three nested 1-2s and this scenario, because I'd actually switched to linear and we actually reached a target that way. And the fact that we're getting a retracement, I would probably end up changing this to here and use linear fibs for my targets. In this case, I would expect a pullback here, completing our ABC, because a B wave, again, can have that triangle we've been talking about. I would probably go with something like this and use linear scale, even potentially getting, probably not, but, and then I'd just be targeting the fifth wave at the 1.618 around 78,000. So that's if we drift sideways here for quite a long time. But again, to get this short, I'd expect that diagonal again. We don't have to get that. We can get a complex combination, but I'd be confident in the short if we got a diagonal. So that's how I would adjust that, unfortunately. And finally, our bearish scenario. We're technically at our zone. So off our high here, we had a three-wave move, A, B, C. For a W wave, this would be a complex combination. I'm not even going to attempt to count this because I can count this in so many different ways, guys. It's not helpful. Just know we're getting a lot of three waves in overlap. Like I can make this a ABC, make this an expanded flat, make this some sort of diagonal. There's a lot of things I can make here, but it's not important, the exact count here for the bearish scenario. What's important is it would most likely be a flat. We have a 3. This would end up being 3, and we'd look for 5 down for a C wave. Now, I don't think this is going to happen, but we need a bearish scenario, obviously. And if we got that diagonal to the downside and we absolutely collapse after that, I mean, at least you're in that, right? Now, it's important to note that we can come as high as 79,624 and 83,241. So this can look quite impulsive before turning back. These are the common targets for a running flat and an expanded flat for our B or X. And it's also important to note that we can get a 3 or 5 wave move after this B wave or X wave is complete. But I'm not going to go too in depth in that. This video is getting pretty long. But this can turn over at any point, and I can label this currently in the bearish scenario a lot of different ways. I can even put a running WXY here, right? And then say we need one more up and then we drop, that sort of thing. But there's too many scenarios where this is corrective and a few where it is bullish. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, one thing to note, people might say, okay, this 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, how crazy can it get, right? Well, I'll show you here. So this is our 5-wave move off of September 2023. I remember trading this. I took a long on this. You can even go back and check those videos way back then. Although the labeling did change because I saw this as a diagonal rather than a series of 1-2s. Originally, I saw this as a expanded diagonal, but you go back, you can see how ugly these waves are. That's why I never say, as long as it's valid, I say it's possible, right? Look how ugly these waves were off this low. All right, this was a diagonal to the upside, wave 1. This was a expanded diagonal here, right, for another wave 1. And this was an actual 5-wave move. But you can see how ugly those are. And then what happened after. Boom. So if we get that 3 nested 1-2s, that's what we're looking for. That's the reaction. That's how you know these are 3 1-2s. That sort of reaction, right? So if we start moving up and we don't get a reaction like that, then it's probably a different count. That's the important to note. Elliott wave isn't just about tracking the possibilities. It's about flipping your primary based on the reaction after the termination, right? So that's what we expect. I'm not saying it has to happen. That's what we need to happen for this to be 312s, right, in the future. You can see that, right? And it just goes and never comes back. That's why I say if this is 3 nested 1-2s, it'll go and probably never come back, right, for a very, very long time. So if we go down to the 1 hour, we're right at that zone. Any invalidation is at this pivot, in my point of view, based on this count at 67.03685. Lots of good trade setups here available if you choose to take that. Anywhere in here is fine. You can put the stop past the 786, the most common area, or at the low, and you know we're going for all-time highs. I'm looking for this to potentially turn into diagonal, as you know, but if it doesn't turn into a diagonal, we're right at the area where we expect a pivot to the upside. All right, guys, so if you like my videos, please be sure to like and subscribe. I do post on Twitter sometimes things I don't make videos on. I'll leave a link in the description to my Twitter. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.